Hello and welcome to the Bristly Stranger. Last week I was watching a Blood Bowl stream between two legends, Penge of the Geek Cupboard and Wee Hours Dave, and it became apparent to me that a lot of people in the chat didn't really know what Blood Bowl was. There was one or two old school veterans kicking around, but I thought I'd put together a little introduction to Blood Bowl and just talk about the basics of how to play and just what it is. This is obviously not the Blood Bowl they were playing, this is Blood Bowl 2. But in all its editions, Blood Bowl has just about stayed the same. It was first released back in 1986, back in the olden times. It had little cardboard figures, and the production level wasn't that great. A couple of years later, however, and this was the first edition I got, Games Workshop re-released 2nd edition Blood Bowl. It had a fantastic looking styrofoam board that the models didn't really stand up on, and all the models were exactly the same but had different coloured bases so you knew which player was which. In 1994, 3rd edition Blood Bowl came out, and this was pretty much how the game has stayed until today. It has been tweaked. In 2004, I think it was, there was a living rulebook created by the fans, and this governed how people should play the game. In 2016, Games Workshop re-released another version. New figures, lots better than the old ones, and by all accounts it was the same game, just with a new skin and slight better touches. I've played a lot of Blood Bowl over the years, that doesn't make me an expert, but let's have a quick look at the teams. I'll just go through the ones in Blood Bowl 2. I think there are 25 different teams in the full living rulebook. They've obviously all got their plus and minus points, but rather than going into them all, I'm just going to briefly talk about the ones in this game. So each of the teams have many strengths and weaknesses, all of which are based on 4 stats: movement, strength, agility and armour, and of course the player's skills. The more skills you have, the easier it is to do certain things, but it's very selective. For instance, the block skill makes blocking slightly easier, or slightly less dangerous to you anyway, and the dodge skill allows you to re-roll failed dodges. Most of the skills kind of work in this way, by either giving you a bonus to something, or by allowing you to re-roll a failed roll. With humans, they are supposed to be the ultimate all-round team. When they start off, they've got players that can dodge, players that can block. Their catching players are really good at running. They can have the big guy in the ogre, which holds up their line, and they're pretty good at most things you want to do. If you want to run with the ball, if you want to throw the ball, if you want to get stuck in with the blocking, they're pretty good at doing it. After a few games, the other teams start building up some skills, and that's when the humans start getting a little bit weaker. An experienced player who knows what they're doing with a human team will be extremely hard to beat. They have got that burst of speed where they can just run past you, get the ball, do something unexpected, and because their armour's not too bad, they can just hold up to a fight. The orcs, however, they're not quite as versatile. Their players in general are a lot slower, but they do have a lot more strength on their team. Their armour values are good, the black orcs are really strong, so we'll be getting 2 dice against the average player. They've got a troll. Trolls are stupid, but if they've got a guy next to him, they generally do what you want. They've got the goblins that can sneak around. The troll can even pick up a goblin who has the ball and throw him down the pitch. The only real problem with the orcs, they haven't got a lot of tactics. Smash your enemy and try and roll down the pitch with the ball. It's a lot harder, you gotta plan ahead. The brutality of the orcs can often win you games, but they're often quite low scoring games. The dwarves, we saw Penge playing as the dwarves. He didn't use the big guy. Their big guy is a death roller, and the problem with that, it's an illegal weapon. So the moment someone scores, or the half ends, the death roller is sent off and not going to be coming back on. Fast teams will score quickly, get the death roller off the pitch, and then you've wasted a whole lot of money on one player that isn't allowed to play. The dwarves, while they're not strong as such, have amazing armour values. They're so hard to injure. They're not bad at skills, they can pick up the ball, they can throw the ball. The real weakness of the dwarves is obviously their speed. They're a lot slower than the other teams. It does mean you're going to have to plan ahead. So it might mean that you leave players back, but that means effectively they're out of the game. If you throw everyone forward and then lose the ball, especially to a faster team, they'll run round you and there'll be nothing you can do. Penge mentioned at one point you don't have to score when you've got the ball, so a tactic that works well against these slow teams. You run past them with your super fast player and wait just outside the end zone without scoring. You can count the squares so you know the dwarves aren't going to get close enough to be able to catch you, and if they do get close enough, you score. If you just do this, you can run the clock down. It means the dwarves have got lots less time to catch up. It's really sneaky, horrible play, and I hate to see it, but it is a valid tactic.
Are magic sponges really magical, Bob?
That's a trade secret, Jim.
Next up we have the Skaven. We always played as the Skaven. I have a particular soft spot for these furry little guys. The first time I ever played any Games Workshop, Skaven was my first choice, and I've had a love for them ever since. They're not strong as such. They do have the big rat ogre. He can smash his way through. They're not well armoured. In fact, they're quite fragile as a whole. There's only the blitzers and the rat ogre that will really stand up to the battle. But they are quite cheap, so if you know you're facing strong opponents, rather than taking the rat ogre and have one player to fight their entire team, you can just get more disposable players. I think you can get 3 line rats for 1 rat ogre and have money left over. Obviously you can only have 11 players on the pitch, but having replacements, that's quite powerful, especially if you manage to wear your opponent down. The absolute strength of the Skaven is their gutter runners. Probably the fastest player in the game. They're one of the only teams that can score a 1-turn touchdown right from the start. You have to be quite lucky to get that, but a gutter runner moving forward, they've got fairly good agility if no strength, and the Skaven throwers aren't too bad. They can throw the ball down to them and no one's going to be able to catch them very easily. Again, they're one of those teams, they start off quite well, and as soon as the other teams start getting a lot of skills, they will start struggling. There are several elf teams, but the high elves, they're quite expensive. They've got good armour, they have weird skills though, so you're going to have to get a few games under your belt before you can even get the basic skills. They are really powerful once they get going, but if you lose a player, it's going to be a massive blow to the team. They're so expensive, you're never going to have that many players. They don't have a big guy, but with all elves, agility 4 means throwing, dodging, almost any skill roll, they're going to ace it. With the dark elves, it's pretty much the same thing. They've got the added bonus, they are brutal. The witch elves, they may look cute, but they are frenzied, they will push players off the pitch. The assassins will stab you. Again, they're such a high ability team, you're not going to have a fun time against them. They will dodge around you, they will run off, and when you least expect it, they will murder you. They are quite fragile. I don't think they've got the best armours. If a team is concentrating on bashing them up, they better make a quick job of it. Otherwise, the elves score too many and the bashing team just will not catch up. The Bretonnians. Now, these are a bit of an unknown quantity for me. As far as I know, they have 2 types of players. They have the peasant linemen, which are very cheap but terrible, and then the knights. And the knights themselves are pretty good at a lot of things. The problem is they are very expensive. Again, at the start, there's not a lot of skills on the team. You have to get a few games under your belt to get the basic skills into play. Chaos, they have multiple teams. This is just the basic Chaos version. Chaos Warriors, super strong. The Minotaur, almost unstoppable at times. The Beastmen, good average players. On the Blitz, they get extra bonuses to their strength. They are quite an overpowering team. But again, at the start, no skills. If you can get those first few games under your belt, get the basic skills in, Chaos soon become unstoppable. Chaos are one of the few teams that allow mutations as well. I think Skaven are one of the other teams, but it is a bonus with these guys. Lizardmen, I have played these, they are super good. They suit my playstyle very well. The Croxagore big guy, very tough. As with all the big guys, he can fail to do what you want him to do and just stand there like a plum. The big Sauron warriors, you can have up to 6 of them, super strong. And the little skinks, really quick. Again, not many starting skills. Plus, all of the big guys, the Saurons and the Croxagore, have low agility. So if it's picking up the ball with one of these guys, you're going to struggle. The skinks, they're small stunty guys. They also struggle with picking up and throwing the ball, but they are good runners. So if you can get one with sure hands, pick up the ball and run, they are pretty hard to stop. Norse, kind of like your humans, they've got lower armour, they've got some stronger players. They've got werewolves with frenzy, they're strong as well. They have the big yeti. In my miniatures team, I've got a werebear instead of a yeti. I've never liked that figure. But these guys are super bashy. Almost all of them have the block skill right at the start. Just the werewolves and the yeti I think don't. The low armour means if you start taking damage, it's hard to get it back. But they are quite versatile, so if you do need to run or throw, they can do that too. Undead team, they are tough. They don't really have many fast players. The ghouls, they're quite fast. They're not really undead though, they don't have the regenerate skill like everybody else. Skeletons and zombies, super cheap, not the best players, but even if they are killed, they've got a chance to regenerate and come back. The wights, they're kind of the star players. They're good at punching, they're pretty good at picking up and throwing the ball. They haven't really got the skills, but they are good versatile players. And there are 2 mummies. They're not as big as some of the other big guys, but they don't have any of the negative penalties. Their only real negative is they're slow. Because you can have 2 of them, it does mean they can hold the line pretty well. Necromantic, they're another version of the undead team. They don't have mummies, they have flesh golems. They've got werewolves that are super fast. Otherwise, it's pretty much more of the same. Like with the other undead team, they do have some high costs at the start, but that is kind of mitigated by your rubbish heap players, in this case only zombies. And lastly we have the Nurgle team. They're another chaos team. They have slightly more choice of players. The Pestigores are kind of the same as Beastmen. The big chaos warriors, roughly the same. No Minotaur here, they have a Beast of Nurgle, which is a horrible mutated lump that's going to cause lots of problems. They do have the cheap and expendable Nurgle Rotters. They're like your basic men. Because they are cheap though, they can make up the numbers. I've only played against these guys. Considering this is a combat team, they are quite fragile. Their ball handling is not very good either. There are obviously loads of other teams, and there's loads more tactics than the brief bit I've discussed here. But I just wanted a quick look, let you know about the different ones. Setting up a team, it varies a lot depending on what you're going after. The big guys, they're going to cost you lots of money. So do you invest in a big guy to put fear into your enemy, or do you have lots of smaller players to put in the reserve box and come on when they need to? And to finish the video, I thought I'd show you a few basic tactics, a few simple bits of the game, and just a few different things to look out for if you're thinking of playing.
I hope your front door is locked and your phone is switched off. It's match time, and nothing can come in the way of a head coach and his Blood Bowl!
So a standard Blood Bowl game is 8 turns per half, 2 halves. Each player generally gets 8 turns. There are some effects that either give you less turns or more turns. They are random and sometimes appear on the kickoff table. Normally turn lengths are about 4 minutes. In this version of the game you can set them to whatever you want, and the standard was 2 minutes. did feel like a much quicker game. The main thing that's going to finish your go early is a turnover. I'll show some examples of them in a bit. A turnover occurs when bad things happen to your team in your turn. If your own men get injured, either by failing a block roll or by failing a skills roll, like a dodge roll or a failed catch, or even just picking up the ball. There are other things that can cause a turnover. Going for it, running that extra square, it's a 1 in 6 chance of failure, but it will end your turn. People that have played Blood Bowl for a long time will know about turn priority. This is how risky the move is to perform. So it starts off at a no risk move, so moving or standing a player up that's fallen over. This isn't going to be risky unless of course you are making a dodge roll. That leaves us into low risk if you've got a player with good skills, so they have got the dodge skill and they're making a dodge roll. That is less risky, but there is still an element that may end your turn. A strong attack, so either outnumbering your opponent or a big player taking on a small player. You're rolling multiple block dice and choosing the best one. Less risky. A high risk move is one that you can't re-roll, taking an attack where you are either equal or less, so your opponent is choosing the result, or doing a very hard skill check, like picking up a ball from multiple tackle zones or dodging through loads of opposition players. The easiest way to move the ball is to throw it to a player further up the pitch, but the longer the throw, the more difficult it is. In this example, just moving one extra square turns it from a short pass into a quick pass, thus making it loads easier.
They've thrown the ball.
Even if the throw is failed, it can still be caught. It's just a little bit harder because it's no longer an accurate pass. This has allowed the Norse player to move the ball from one end of the pitch to the other with relative ease. Leaving the ball carrier unprotected though means the Orcs are going to have an easy job getting the ball back. Here the Orc player has got the ball and is trying to protect it by setting up what is known as a cage. The player uses no-risk moves to surround the ball carrier, thus stopping his opponent being able to blitz them. This cage has got a hole in it, so it's not perfect, but with the ball carrier surrounded, it will take a couple of turns for the opponent to blitz the ball carrier out of this cage. This time the Norse player gets the ball and decides to cage up. Because most of the players have already gone this turn, or they're already locked down by the Orcs, caging is good to wait for the next turn and then you can actually do something with the ball. You could completely surround the ball carrier. This would make it really hard next turn to get the ball out unless you're planning to throw it to somebody, or just waste your opponent's time and wait for the end of the game if you're already in the lead. Another valid tactic, especially with the more bashy teams, knock down all your opponent's people. They're going to have a job scoring and no one's able to stand up. This tactic works less well against the well-armoured teams. You're going to have a hard job, but of course if they're on the ground they can't block you, they can only blitz and move to stand up. One tactic that works particularly well against armoured teams is to push them off the edge of the pitch. If you've got a frenzied player, you can choose the push action and they get a second go. Even if they're not right on the sideline, you might be able to push them into the crowd, which if nothing else gets them off the pitch until the next kick-off. One of the most fun things about Blood Bowl is how random it can be. This time the werewolf pushes the Orc player off the pitch. The crowd throw the ball back in and we never know quite where it's going to end up. Of course the only way to actually win the game is to score a touchdown. It doesn't matter how many people you knock off the pitch, how many people are injured, you only win by actually scoring. After a touchdown is scored, or at the end of the first half, each player gets a chance to bring players back onto the field. This could either be from the reserve box, or to try and recover knocked out players. Of course, a large part of any dice game
Is the assist going to be
is
enough
luck.
to come out on top?
And without luck on your side, you're going to have those dreaded turnovers.
I was just getting born.
The turnover stops whatever else is happening, so if you're
Aye,
picking
sir.
up a ball before a blitz, you can use players' skills to re-roll dice, or even the valuable team re-rolls that can re-roll any single dice. You can't re-roll a re-roll, and at the end of the day, it is all look at the dice. Of course, there's so much more to the game than one little video could teach you. The best way to learn how to play is to play as much as you can. That said, you can always watch other people play. If you have enjoyed this, leave us a like, and if you'd like to see me play a full game, drop a comment in as well. And here are links to both the Geek Cupboard and Wee Hours, taken from their live match. I think Penge did have a little bit more experience than Dave. Not sure it'd be the same with XCOM. I've been the Bristly Stranger, thanks for watching, and goodbye!